much of what we talked about, everybody else talked about, which is always good about going last, but also finding the things that that maybe other people haven't mentioned. We talked a little bit to start off with about how the 3 case studies very much looked at big data sources and databases, but a cultural digital resource for the user is actually many more things than that. And we kind of came to the conclusion that anything that's accessible online that somebody sees a use for is a cultural digital resource, and that maybe if one thinks of it like that, then the conversations that we can go on to have are slightly different. And we talked a little bit about IT departments, whether they're helpful or not, and when they're helpful and when they're not helpful, and the history of IT departments and how they need to progress just as much as the people creating content who want to get more out online want to be working with users. We talked a little bit about our experiences of projects and coming from quite different backgrounds. But one thing that stuck out for me was that often it is the funder who's funding a particular project who can set the parameters of what they actually want, and so that's what they get. And if you're a partner in a project like that, then it might fit a little bit more with what the funder wants rather than what the organisation might want. And that took us to a bit of a detailed conversation around file types, image sizes, a funder wanting a particular kind of format because it suits them, but actually it's not really very usable for the organisation that's created it and might then be wanting to use it. We talked on the back of that around how some projects that are aimed at researchers and academics end up with different users. Family historians are often picking up on the back of some research projects, academic projects, because it's a way into family history and genealogy, which a lot more people are interested in at the moment. We talked about content and how creating content for different devices is the one set of ideal content that we could create that would not then need to be rewritten or reworked for different applications, for different user groups, at different time periods. Which took us to users and to audiences, and who are our users, who are the audiences, what do they want, how do we write for them, how do we produce content for them, and that front-end evaluation can really help inform that. So we might, in a particular project, end up when at the end of the project, or the end of that particular period, the evaluation hopefully will show that we've delivered some of what that audience wanted for them at that particular time. And then we talked a little bit around about tracking users, what Martin was saying, who are they? You can see what they're doing, but you don't necessarily know who they are. Do we need to know who they are? And if you are in contact with a user physically, then you can help direct them and guide them to things they will find useful, and that's much more difficult online with a digital resource because that direct contact isn't there. And is there anything we can do about that? Does it matter? Is that something we just have to let go of, as others have said? And moving on to just talk about future workshops, we talked at various points in the conversation about how digital and how digital resources within larger organisations are perceived, and who has the ownership of those strategies, who are the advocates for digital resources, and how do we have governance within larger organisations in relation to those resources, and who are the voices for audiences, but who are the voices within an organisation for that kind of content. And that brought us a little bit to advocacy for these kinds of resources, both within organisations but then as advocates, organisational advocates for, on a much bigger scale, about how these resources can be used into the future. So maybe a slight departure from what some other groups had said in terms of future workshops.